Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here at IATA. I want to thank all of you for having me. I want to thank Doug for the kind introduction. My daughter appreciates the mention. I'll let her know later on tonight. I'd also like to thank ICAO Council President Dr. Bernard Aliou for being here and for all the work he's doing with ICAO to keep global aviation safe. It's wonderful to see my good friend, Deputy Secretary Mayorkas, here today, and I also want to acknowledge him. There's another coincidence that makes today's meeting here in Miami special. It was here that the world's first commercial international flight took off. Now, lest you be a little confused by this, the flight was not taken by Pan Am or Delta or Air France or American. It was called Chalk's Flying Services, founded by Arthur Pappy Chalk. Maybe some of you have heard of him. He was a pilot during World War I, and he ferried passengers from here to the Bahamas. His office was a chair and a table on Miami Beach under a beach umbrella. He took reservations from a phone that you had to crank by hand, which was hanging from a pole. And he facilitated some of the first international trade via plane. Now, you may be asking, what was he carrying? Well, this was after Prohibition began, and his cargo apparently was Al Capone's bootleg liquor. So suffice it to say, things have changed a little bit since that time. This year, as has been said, IATA begins its 71st year. And I came here simply to say to you, keep going, keep growing, keep making progress. There is no global economy as we know it without you. In fact, today there are over 150 international airlines represented in this room. Today, there will be over 100,000 commercial flights around the world, and some 8 million people on board those flights. For 70 years, IATA's members and the airlines have built a global community that is more connected, that is more open and more developed than previous generations could have ever imagined. And I think that if you're a certain age, it's easy to take this for granted. For example, when IATA came together, I was almost 30 years from being born. It's hard to fathom a world today without international travel, a world in which in less than a day, someone here in the U.S. can board an aircraft and maybe touch down in Paris and continue to West Africa to serve in the Peace Corps. In less than one day, someone can leave home in another country and come to the United States to study, to work, or to visit. And in fact, most of those who travel will never think about all of the pieces that have to come together to make their international travels possible. It's one of the reasons why we're so lucky that IATA does. On a personal level, I was a student back in 1991, a student who was performing okay but hadn't quite figured out my purpose in the world, and I had an opportunity in 1991 to travel to South Africa, a country that at the time was working its way out of the scourge of apartheid. Now, the truth of the matter is that when I went on this journey, I didn't know what type of plane I was flying on. I didn't think about the intricacies of multiple air traffic systems having to connect to keep my plane safe. I didn't understand the vital importance of code sharing to those international connections, but what I do remember is an indelible learning moment that helped me understand my place in the world better. The great actor Denzel Washington is fond of saying of his roles that he studies and researches and then he gets out of the way. Well, in many ways, you do your job so well that to those who use International Air Service, you get out of the way. You allow them to have whatever experiences they're looking for, whether they're personal or professional. They don't have to think about all the things backing up their travel. They just go, and the world's economy keeps churning as a result. Without IATA and the way you've connected the world, it's probably true that I wouldn't be here today. And our task now is to continue working together to create those connections. Because every time a plane takes off, so does a career, so does an idea, and so does business. We have challenges ahead of us, and that's absolutely the case. Forecasts indicate travel demand will increase by 25% to more than 1 billion passengers by 2029. Our airports and infrastructure need repairs. Here in the U.S., the American Society of Civil Engineers gave America's aviation system in particular a D on its last infrastructure report card. Unless, I know we're in an international audience, but a D is not the grade you want to get. We must encourage new technologies. The FAA is hard at work building Next Gen. And Next Gen is already saving our planes from traveling millions of extra miles, wasting gallons of extra fuel, producing thousands of tons of CO2, and spending time on the tarmac. But we need to finish that job. Next Gen must become this gen. And of course, we need more federal funding, and for that funding to be predictable. As you know, the FAA reauthorization bill expires in September. We're working to get a long-term reauthorization bill passed, but we can't do it alone. In fact, all of these things we must do together, just as we have done them before. For 70 years, the international aviation community has changed our world, and I look forward to its continuing evolution over the next 70 years. I want to thank you for having me here today, and best of luck on your annual general meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. You got it.
Thank you.